So you are getting ready to sell your home, and maybe you're thinking about updating the kitchen or replacing the flooring, or maybe remodeling that bathroom you've hated for years. Meanwhile, your buyers are walking through the house saying things like, "Did you smell that? Why is it so dark in here? What's making that noise?" Or sometimes they don't say anything at all. They just walk away from the showing feeling unsure. And that's what makes this tricky for sellers, because after living in a home for years, you stop noticing certain things. You stop paying attention to them. They just become part of everyday life. But buyers don't do that. Buyers start forming impressions about a house almost immediately, sometimes before they even realize why. So today, we're talking about the subtle things buyers notice fast that can quietly affect how they feel about your home. And that's why some Denver area homes sit on the market longer than sellers expect. And honestly, a couple of these surprise sellers every time I bring them up. So stick around for those. And when we get there, tell me in the comments whether they surprised you too. Now, let's start with one that sellers almost never notice any: smell. And listen, I'm not talking about the obvious odors, because sometimes it's not even one specific smell. It's just a feeling in the air. Maybe it's pets. Maybe it's years of cooking smells. And yes, sometimes it's cigarette smoke, especially in homes where a smoker has lived there for a very long time. And sometimes it's actually all the scented plug-ins or sprays to cover those things up, because buyers notice that too. And when a buyer walks into a house and immediately gets hit with an overpowering fragrance, their first thought usually isn't, "Wow, this smells amazing." It's more like, "What are they trying to hide?" And that's what makes smell tricky, because after years in the same home, your senses become accustomed to it. Meanwhile, buyers are walking through the house completely fresh. I had a situation recently where before we could even think about putting the home on the market, the very first step was repainting much of the house, because after years of cigarette smoke, it had settled into the walls, and the family didn't fully realize how noticeable it was until they stepped away from the home for a while and then came back. Now realize that buyers usually feel smell before they even think about it logically. They know the house just doesn't feel fresh. Meanwhile, just like this family, the seller walks through the house thinking everything feels completely normal, because to them, it does. The good news is this usually isn't something that requires massive remodel. Airing out the home really helps, especially here in Colorado, where we're lucky to have so many fresh air days. Cleaning carpets helps. Washing curtains and fabrics helps. Keeping scents neutral. And maybe skip cooking fish or eggs right before the showing, because although buyers don't expect perfection, they want a house to feel clean, fresh, and comfortable when they walk in. You know, another thing sellers stop noticing over time is lighting, or simply how dark a house might actually feel to a buyer. Because when you live in a home for years, the routines become second nature. You instinctively know which switch turns on what. You naturally open up blinds during the day, maybe to light up the room, or keep them closed in the summer to help block out some heat. And since you know your home, you stop noticing darker corners of the house altogether. But buyers are walking through the home for the very first time. And if a room feels dark or heavy or closed off, buyers immediately start feeling like something's missing, even if they don't say anything about it out loud. And sometimes sellers accidentally make this worse without even realizing it. Heavy curtains, burnt out light bulbs, warm yellow lighting that feels dim, dirty windows, dusty blinds, or sometimes no light fixture at all in a room. And buyers pick up on that quickly, because here in Colorado, buyers really do respond to natural light, especially in areas like Highlands Ranch, Littleton, and Lakewood, where people love the bright, open feeling inside a home, and where builders have usually taken advantage of our wonderful front range views. Thankfully, you don't have to go in for expensive renovations. It could be as simple as cleaning the windows so they sparkle inside and out, opening the blinds, pushing aside the curtains, or even taking them off completely, adding brighter light bulbs, trimming landscaping outside the windows. Even moving one piece of oversized furniture away from a window can completely change how a room feels. And of course, making sure that when an agent flicks a switch, a light actually comes on. Because buyers aren't only noticing square footage, they're noticing how the house feels. And light plays a huge role in that. Another thing buyers react to very quickly is when personal items start overpowering the room itself. And this can be hard for sellers to recognize, because after years in a home, those things simply feel normal to you. But a buyer walks through the home differently. They're trying to picture their furniture, their artwork, their life inside the space. And I've shown homes before where buyers become so distracted by a seller's collectibles or knickknacks or souvenirs or personal items that they stop paying attention to the room itself. So instead of noticing the size of the bedroom, they're focused on everything that's on display on the wall and shelves. Instead of imagining where their couch would go, they're trying to process the current owner's furniture and belongings. And this can happen with anything: family photos, travel souvenirs, collections gathered over decades. A few well-placed personal touches can absolutely make a home feel warm and welcoming. But when there's too much visually competing for attention, buyers can start feeling mentally crowded without fully understanding why. I always tell sellers buyers shouldn't walk into a room wondering where they're supposed to look first. The house itself should be the focus. And especially in many Denver area homes where rooms may not be as large to begin with. Too many items can quickly make a room feel smaller and visually overwhelming. Now, that doesn't mean stripping all personality out of the home, not at all. It just means creating enough visual breathing room for buyers to picture themselves living there instead of feeling like they're intruding into somebody else's space. A house should still feel warm, welcoming, and lived in. Sometimes just packing away a few collections, editing down personal photos, or creating a little more visual breathing room completely changes how buyers experience the space. And interestingly, some of the best stage homes almost have a feeling of a really welcoming Airbnb. They feel comfortable, clean, open, and easy to imagine yourself in, because ultimately buyers are trying to picture their future inside the home, not simply admire the current owner's past. Now, here's something most sellers don't think about, but buyers react very quickly to physical comfort. And this surprises sellers all the time because over time, homeowners naturally get used to how the house feels. Maybe one room is noticeably hotter than the rest of the house. Or maybe the upstairs is a little more stuffy in the summer. Maybe the basement feels a little cooler. Maybe a fan is blasting in one room while the other room feels completely still. And buyers notice that immediately. Because once buyers start feeling uncomfortable, their attention shifts away from the house itself. Instead of noticing the layout or the updates or the beautiful kitchen, they're suddenly thinking, why is it so warm in here? Or why does this room feel so freezing? And here in Colorado, this comes up more than sellers realize because our weather changes so dramatically throughout the year, especially in two-story homes where the upstairs temperature can feel completely different from the main level, or in homes with basements that naturally feel cooler than the rest of the house. And when buyers feel physically uncomfortable during a showing, they tend to carry that feeling through the rest of the tour. Now, the nice thing is, a lot of this can be easily improved. Sometimes it's as simple as adjusting the thermostat before showing, opening the blinds during the winter to naturally warm the house, or making sure the home feels cool and comfortable during hotter summer days. If a basement tends to run cold, even something as simple as adding a soft rug, better lighting, or even heating it a little bit longer before showing can help the space feel much more welcoming. And if you already know certain rooms heat or cool differently, well, that's worth paying attention to before the buyers walk through. Because buyers may only spend a few minutes in a home, but comfort is one of those subtle things buyers remember long after the home tour ends. And when the house feels physically comfortable, buyers tend to stay longer, relax more, and settle into the space much more naturally. Now, sound is another thing sellers often stop noticing over time, because when you live in a house every day, you tune out certain noises completely. The squeaky floor, the loud bathroom fan, the vent rattling, the dog next door, the creaky screen door, or that refrigerator that suddenly sounds like it's preparing for takeoff. But buyers hear those things immediately because they're hearing the house with completely fresh ears. And once buyers notice one distracting noise, suddenly they're noticing every little sound. Now, sometimes these noises are small and easy to fix. And sometimes they're simply part of living in a home, especially here in the Denver metro area where homes are close to busy streets, walking trails, schools, parks, or town centers like in Littleton, Highlands Ranch, and Parker, where there's naturally more activity going on. And while buyers may absolutely love those amenities, they're still forming impressions based upon what they hear during the showing. This is why sellers want to avoid sounds that are an unnecessary distraction, because if buyers are focusing on the sound, they're no longer fully focused on the home itself. And usually the fixes are surprisingly simple. Tightening a loose vent, lubricating a squeaky door, replacing an overloud bathroom fan, running the dishwasher or laundry during a showing. Probably not ideal, because buyers tend to connect most with homes that feel calm, comfortable, and easy to relax into. And sound plays a much bigger role in that than most sellers realize. Oh, and speaking of squeaky doors, let's talk about the front door test. Yeah, because this one surprises sellers every time I bring it up. Because a lot of homeowners, you're not even using your front door very much anymore. You're coming in through the garage every day. So over time, little issues with the front entry stop standing out. Maybe the screen door sticks. Maybe the lock only works if you lift the handle a certain way. Maybe the door drags slightly or doesn't latch properly unless you pull it shut really hard. Meanwhile, small issues like this quietly create bigger questions in the buyer's minds. And this matters even more because the front door sets the tone for everything that comes after it, because the showing experience actually starts before the buyers ever walk through the door. Picture this. If the agent's already struggling with the front door, fumbling with the lock, or trying to force a sticky screen door open, it immediately creates an awkward start to the showing. Now the agent's distracted. The buyers are standing there watching. And instead of comfortably introducing the home and pointing out its best features, Everyone's attention is suddenly focused on the door that won't cooperate. And even if buyers never say a word about it, moments like that quietly plant doubts like, what else might need work here? Because buyers don't experience a home one issue at a time, they experience the overall feeling at the showing. Fortunately, most of these fixes are incredibly simple. Adjusting a latch, lubricating hinges, tightening hardware, replacing worn weather stripping, making sure locks close smoothly. Because buyers may not consciously remember every detail of a showing later, but they absolutely remember how the home made them feel. Hey, I'm curious. Did that one surprise you? Because this is one sellers almost never think about until I bring it up. And once you begin looking at your home through a buyer's eyes, you begin to realize how many subtle details buyers are quietly picking up on during a home tour. Which brings me to my last buyer trigger. Now, this is where all the small buyer triggers start to come together. Because most buyers aren't walking through your home with a clipboard and a pen keeping score. They're constantly taking in little signals about the house. One issue by itself isn't a problem. A sticky door by itself, not a huge deal. A squeaky floor, probably fine. A darker room, manageable. But when buyers start noticing several things together, they begin mentally adding them up. And that's when hesitation starts creeping in. Because buyers start wondering, well, how much work is this house really going to need? Or what else haven't we seen yet? And especially in today's Denver area market where buyers are already juggling higher prices, higher interest rates, insurance costs, HOA, and moving fees, and in some areas, even more inventory to choose from. So it doesn't take much for them to feel overwhelmed and pull back. Now, the encouraging part is most of the things we talked about today are fixable without spending a fortune. And many of them simply come down to seeing your home through fresh eyes again before putting it on the market. Because buyers don't expect perfection, but they do want to feel comfortable, welcomed, and enjoy the space when they walk through it. And when that happens, buyers stay longer, engage more, and start imagining themselves living there instead of just touring. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I'm Peggy Durstoff with Live Denver Suburbs, powered by HomeSmart. And I help women over 50 make smart real estate decisions without pressure and without regret. If you're thinking about selling your home here in the Denver metro area, I hope this video helped you start seeing your house a little more through a buyer's eyes. Because sometimes it's not the big, expensive renovation that matters most. It's the small things buyers notice and remember while walking through your home. And if you missed last week's video about what not to fix before selling your house, I think that would be a great one to watch next, because the two videos really go hand in hand. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.